what I want you to think about is questioning. The way that you ask questions, the way you look at things has to be with a different set of lenses. It has to be childlike. The problem that most of us come with are we have a bias. We, first of all, think that we know more than we do. That's a basic survival mechanism that we all have. We've all grown up with it. So right away, your belief system is that you are more knowledgeable than you are. In fact, you're not. I'm not. No one is. And if you can, in the privacy of your own home with your own mirror, accept that and acknowledge that, you can let go. And letting go is the beginning of asking the right questions. And we're going to talk about specific questions now around the room. But it's letting go of your preconceptions of the knowledge base you think you have. They say if Alexander Graham Bell knew anything about electricity, he could never have invented the phone. And it's true, because it at that time defied every single law, every bit of common knowledge that existed. Here's the thing I want to share with you. Truly, all of you are the smartest people in the room. You're all successful. You've done some incredible things. You have great experience. If you start thinking about your own experiences, how many of you have ever said, oh, if I only knew then what I know now? The fact is, you could have known then what you know now. The only thing that stopped you was you, because you have preconceptions. You have cognitive biases. There are 25 major cognitive biases. There are 25 secondary. We're not going to go through 50 of them, but we're going to cover them sort of like I just covered the black swan from a higher position. And to tell you that your first instinct, your first belief, consider it to be wrong. Assume it to be wrong so that you can let go of it. Letting go is the key, and you have to be able to do that. So, letting go is one. Two, assume you're wrong. If you sell a product, let's say that you have a product for sale, and that product is $100. And all of a sudden, something happens in the world, in the industry, and the most you can sell that product for is $40. Period. If you don't sell it for $40, it won't sell. If you sell it for $40, it will sell. And you're thinking, how the heck can I do that? And that's the question to ask. Because if you start re-engineering what you do to make that product profitable at $40 instead of $100, what does that tell you? What do you learn from that exercise? We can go through it on the board, but I don't think we need to in this group. What does it tell you about your operations, your company, your perspective, your product, your margins, your manufacturing, your design, your cost of sale, cost of acquisition? Well, you know, either that you're doing it wrong at 100, or you're going to have to get a lot smarter about how you do it, and all the things you were doing before that you just took for granted because you were comfortable don't apply anymore. The game has changed. Comfort is one of the biggest obstacles to success. If you get comfortable, you will not succeed. You will not grow, rather. You will not increase. You will stay at a plateau. You can't be comfortable. You have to be on the edge. You have to be always reevaluating and questioning. By the way, you don't need this in your private life and dating and all that. It's, you know, usually gets in the way. And you'll never succeed, I promise. You know. So it's about getting rid of a comfort level. Someone came to me and said that they wanted to do a, and I don't remember who it was at one of the meetings that I went to. They wanted to do an addiction, and I'm not saying this is a joke. They wanted to do a course to help people who are addicted to pornography. And after we made all the requisite jokes, they said, I'm passionate about this. I believe it'll work. It's a real chronic problem. People are out there. And I pulled him back and I said, okay, would you agree that you have an emotional attachment to this issue? Yes. Would you agree that you have a bias because all you're seeing is this problem? How many of you decide you're going to buy a certain type of car, which you usually make that decision 6 months before you do, and for the next 6 months, it seems like the only cars you see on the road are that car? Okay, does that tell you about your cognitive bias, your visual bias? All right. So this person believed in it. I said, okay, first of all, you know, how many hours does someone spend? And they tell me, I said, well, that's half the time kids spend on sitcoms or YouTube, so I don't see the problem. Oh, it destroys families. What percent of families does it destroy? Well, it turns out it does destroy families, but in an infinitesimal number. I said, we have to talk about a market here. How are you going to reach these people? Do they accept that they have a problem? Do they care? If it's not, they're not gamblers gambling away the college fund for the kids. Where's the problem? What other sources are out there? Do they go to their doctors for help? It turns out when we're done, the cost of acquisition would be astronomical. The profit would be non-existent, and he'd be spinning his wheels trying to zoom in on a very small, at least a market that would admit it. So I'm using that as sort of a fun example, but not so much fun because he was ready to invest everything into this. And you have to step back and say, why? Why do I feel strongly about this? I've heard a lot of passion here from nonprofits and building this and building that. The question is why? What's the outcome? You also have to look at the affinity. Everyone understands what I mean by affinity marketing to a like group. You could want to, and I say this with no disrespect to anyone, you could want to save the gay black whales for Jesus, but it's about you and your family first. And if you understand that, then you can use that in marketing when you go out with your products and services. Even if you're doing something philanthropic, even if you're doing something to help people, no matter what you're asking them for, would you donate $5 to this or $100,000 to that? They want to know what's in it for them instinctively. That's how we're wired. And how we're wired is, as you pointed out, the biggest problem. Because our wiring hasn't changed. Our technology has changed, our environment has changed. We're not hunter-gatherers anymore. We're not hunting for food in the traditional sense. But I submit to you that everybody in this room are hunters. We're all, we're not type C personalities, we're A++. I say that as a compliment, if I've offended anyone. But we're hunters. We're looking for that deal, that knowledge, that extra little thing. But don't plug it into the biases you have, the emotional attachments you have. You have to let go. Hire yourself as a consultant. If your best friend who was down to their last bit of money came to you and said, this is what I want to do, how would you look at it? And can you look at it dispassionately and objectively from a distance and give that friend advice? If your kids came to you and said, this is what I want to do, Mom, this is what I want to do, Dad, and they were going to invest everything they had, would you see it as a foolhardy move that they were going to lose everything? Because now you are the parent, the consultant, not the person who's emotionally attached to the project. But you have to step outside. You have to be able to ask yourself the simple questions. But let me give you another example of something. All of you do things here that are complex. High technology, digital marketing, unified platforming, fundraising for complex events, translation for copy into things that people can relate to. I mean, there's a lot of serious brain power in here. Even down to, and I say this as a compliment, what you do, Brian, with installations, because you've done mine, is you have to assess who that person is, what their environment is, how they feel when they're in the room. It has nothing to do with equipment, it has to do with the presentation. And so we do all of these things, and that's great. But here's the thing. One of my heroes, Albert Einstein, said something that I rely on all the time. If what you do cannot be explained to your grandmother who understands it, it is too complicated. Now, think about it. Your grandmother is 2 generations back. If my grandmother were alive and I pulled out my iPhone here, what would she think of this? It's like if you had an iPhone 15 years ago, you'd be arrested as an alien. So technology is moving quickly. How do you explain what you do to your grandmother? So step 1 is, what do I want to do? What is my project today? What is my goal for my company? What is the next level I want to get to? How am I understanding this? Now, how do I explain it to my grandmother? Everything I do, I explain to my grandmother. Everything I want to do, I explain to my grandmother. If I can't explain it to my grandmother so she gets it, I don't get it. I miss things. I skip over things. And that's what we don't want to do. We don't want to skip over. We want to be able to focus on everything. Now, this is a lot, and we're just scratching the surface because there are 24 more tools and techniques we're going to share with you today, and we're going to start doing it by example.